aspirational hero. Move that aspirational, 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 move that goal. So the aspirational heroes need to be there. They need to be pure 100% from the beginning. They need to be at that unattainable goal of perfection and good and hopeful and inspirational and all of that. Move that aspirational, 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 move that aspirational. Stop deconstructing heroes. Aspirational or cathartic motivational. Move that aspirational, 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 move that
Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. Everybody always loves it when I play that opening video. I've got others actually that I haven't played. The others deal mostly with Big Al. I think I'm going to work those into the routine. I've got some with him singing all about that bass, and one was hilarious. One was he was talking about. We were talking together, Big Al and I, on stream. We were talking about bands, and he was like, he prefers 4-piece bands. He got, because he Queen's his favorite band. He said, just four guys just going at it. That's what I love. And I was like, did you seriously just say that out? And so Stephen Cruz put together this whole song with him saying that over and over, and I put images of Queen and everything, and it's pretty hilarious. might do that next week. We'll see. But welcome back. Hopefully you guys had a good week. Hopefully you're enjoying the weekend. As usual, this is my weekend. This is Friday night for me, even though it's Saturday night for most, because the way my work week goes, the way my week with Alyssa goes and everything, this is Friday night for me. But welcome, everyone. Do not use all about that. No, Private Eye, the brilliance about these things is that Al says a snippet of the song, but Stephen Cruz put them to his own melodies and everything. So it's I think I'm safe. But the machines are out. And I get it. I mean, I have no right to play somebody else's copyrighted song on my channel, obviously, and they should get money if I do that, obviously. But if someone's chatting and someone sings a certain line of it or a bar, get over yourself. I know, where is Stephen Cruz? He's been Big Al's lurking in the background. Then there was one of him singing I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. And I think I had images of his face on Meatloaf's Beast and my face on the Pretty Girl or something like that. They were really hilarious. I'm gonna have to dig these out and work these in to the rotation. But anyway, do believe Ghost Planet Max Inc. was here first, so welcome to you. And go come back to one of your comments there, Ghost Planet, but welcoming everybody else. Tom Spiegel popped in. Yeah, because I said in the description, it says time for me to piss people off with my movie reviews. And Tom Spiegel said, Prof somehow pisses me off with his words on Godzilla -1. I promise not to throw anything. Yeah, bear with me. I'll give an intro to what I'm going to say about these movies, and it's not all of them that I'm critical about. The ones on the thumbnail, then there were more too if we have time. So, welcome to 14 Biz. Good to see you there. I think Eldridge Fan and Crystal Ashes were saying they weren't going to be able to make it. Hope you feel better, Crystal Ashes. But thanks for popping in anyway, both of you. Electric Barbarella, welcome. Ace Moic, good to see you there. Alec Purdue, great. Oh, great to have you there, Alec Purdue. You're not always there live. Mr. D-Man. Final Fantasy, Guyvart, Nathaniel Zalozball, so many more. Chat's jumping around there on me now. AL, welcome. Michael Scabati, thanks for the flexing his channel membership. Hi, Prof. Over the last few weeks, I rewatched Batman Begins and Dark Knight. Do you have a mental debate? Who's the better Joker, Jack versus Heath? Uh, I appreciate what Heath Ledger did to the Joker. I appreciate the movie Dark Knight for what it is. I think it's a solid film. I think both Batman Begins and Dark Knight are really well-made movies. I think you can tell by Dark Knight Rises that Nolan wanted out of Warner Brothers, because Dark Knight Rises just falls short in so many different ways. I don't accept Batman Begins or Dark Knight as films that are trying to really adapt the true Batman, from culture. Nolan was, at first he wasn't honest. At first he's like, oh, we're bringing in Jerry Robinson and all these people and we're really trying to get it right. And then pretty soon he's like, no, my Batman exists in his own universe, and it was Nolan, man, but hey, Christopher Nolan's a great filmmaker, and there were aspects of Batman that certainly showed up there that were great. So I respect what Heath Ledger did, but for me, it's Jack Nicholson all the way. Heath Ledger really honed in on the Joker, the anarchist aspect, which I think is great. And I think it's an aspect that should have been, that deserved to be played up, and it did it very well. I like the gangster Joker and Jack Nicholson. Not that was perfect, right? I mean, he gave him a whole backstory of Jack Napier and, all this kind of stuff, made him be the one that killed Batman's parents, which I get for reasons of the storytelling of that one movie, but obviously I don't like for the purpose of the, the background of the movie and sort of the mythos of it. So I would, if you ask me what my favorite is, it would be Jack Nicholson, but I'm not anti Heath Ledger by any means. Let's see. Whoa. Alec Purdue. Dang, man. Thank you for the super chat, sir. Said, I'm here, Prof, watching at low volume because I have to close the restaurant right now. I saw the thumbnail and knew I had to catch this live. Consider this donation a motivation for one of those other films I mentioned to you. Those other films you mentioned to me. Motivation for one of those other films you mentioned. You mean like the movies you've mentioned to me since I've known you? Because you mentioned a lot of movies to me. You can clarify in a message later. But thank you so much. Appreciate that super chat. Very, very generous of you. And always appreciate that. Yeah, I don't watch the Nolan movies much either. When Batman Begins came out, I was really excited. I didn't like that he made Batman sort of just a brooding ninja. I wanted more of a gothic detective, but it was the beginning. It was the beginning. And I was like, all right, this is going to really, and, I was excited to see where it went and everything. By Dark Knight, like I said, it was really solidified in that he was telling his own version, of these characters. And I could talk about this for nights and nights on end. So let me just pare back. Because before I get to the movie reviews for tonight, that's a good call though. Studio Super said, yeah, man, I wonder how Johnny Depp would do as a Joker. He's pretty good at playing a trickster. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, he's great. You think Jack Sparrow, right? But he'd have to get really dangerous. He'd have to bring a really dangerous aspect to it. I'm trying to think. He's great at pathos. I mean, Edward Scissorhands, what a wonderful love letter to Universal monsters in the Tim Burton style. Beautiful. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen Johnny Depp play a dangerous aspect to a character. I don't think I have right off the bat, but maybe maybe I'm blatantly overlooking something. But interesting idea. So, I really enjoy the way I've been running my channel, probably for the past year. Really, honestly, and I've talked about it, and just really getting into retro stuff. When something new does come along, I cover it because to me, it's just so rare that something new is actually worth anything. So obviously, when I discovered Doug Brody's books and had him on last week, and I've been talking about those a lot, and I'm excited about those, and I'll talk about new ones that come from him. John Jackson Miller's Batman novels. I was super excited about that, especially because I didn't care for Sam Hamm's comics. And, so I'll be covering the new book that comes out this October from John Jackson Miller in that universe. And, so that stuff, sure. I think it's very rare these days that, and this is just me, this is just my taste and what I think and how I see things, coming from Hollywood or, when it comes to TV or films, they require a bigger budget. So I think it's far more likely to get somebody writing a cool book or a cool indie comic or whatever. I've got the new Cyberfrog Dark, what was it called? Sound Engraver. Not Red Extermination, but anyway, just got that yesterday. So I'll be reading that and reviewing that. But it's easier for somebody to put out a comic or books that are quality material. When it comes to a film or television, even if it's more, independent style, you need more funding. You need funding for that, and that means you have to keep a lot more people happy. And people in the industry just want a lot of. It's either execs trying to meddle and pretend that they're storytellers and they know what's good for the story and end up ruining something, or it's people pushing agendas or whatever. And I just don't have time for it anymore. I'm 45 years old, and that's not old. I mean, it's ancient to anybody, in your 20s. But given your whole span of life, it's middle age, and so there are people living wonderful lives much older than I am. So I'm not pretending like I know everything. I'm the wise one now. No, but I have gotten to the age where I'm like, my time matters, and my time is way too precious to me just to pick up that book on Amazon and just try it. Looks interesting. That TV show, that looks interesting. I'll give that a try, or I'll just go see the movie. I know it's a lot of things about it that it seems like I might not like it, but I'll go give it a chance. No, that's like 2 hours plus of my life that I can't get back. And then compound that when you realize, if you believe as I do, that stories really do affect you. I don't want to invest all of that. So into something that's going to affect me emotionally or, any other way. So I like sticking to the older stuff unless I stumble on something new that there's enough reason for me to give it a chance, And we talk about that some other time too, like reasons I might give new stuff a chance or whatever. I was thinking today, normally I would have made a bunch of videos by now about all the wrong steps and all of the things that seem so wrong and bad about this James Gunn Superman movie. But I've gotten to the point where I just don't care. I still think it's horrible, and I'm not even going to touch it. I'm not going to watch it for save my life. But when the Snyderverse came out, Man of Steel came out, I was all gung ho, like we got to fight this. And I did a lot of stuff on social media and pointed out, look, people need to remember what Superman really is and who he really is. At this point, I don't think it's worth it to fight anymore. Not because Hollywood can't be swayed; they can. If people actually decided to stop going to see everything that comes out, and people just won't. People need new content. They don't care if it's bad. Culture really is dead. It's dead, and I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic. I mean, if you look at Hollywood in general, they've forgotten how to tell stories, how to create new franchises, how to do new things. They've forgotten how to do that for a number of reasons. They don't want to risk it, or there's too much meddling and all this kind of stuff. They've just forgotten. Our culture itself has come to such a standstill. We talked about this before, but ever since 2008 was really the beginning of the end with the smartphone, yeah, right? With AT&T putting out their the first smartphone. That kind of started, then we saw over the next 10 years or so, culture just grinding to a halt. And you see it in clothing styles. If you showed up, if we went back and got somebody from 2005 in a clothing style that was really unique to 2005 and brought them into the present, they wouldn't look all that different. Maybe if they were really into this or that, or still had some frosted tips left over or something, you might go, but no, it wouldn't. Our culture has ground to a halt because we no longer have shared moments anymore. Whether that's and that's because of the technology that it's given us. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but culture's ground to a halt. Again, I'm trying to kind of skip over some things. I don't want to spend all night talking about this. I want to get to my reviews, but I just wanted to point out and let me say this. This will be the last thing I say about it before I move on to the reviews. I mentioned Superman, for example. What I've seen happen, and I'll give you my prediction as to what's going to happen with this Superman Legacy film. When Superman Returns came out 2009, and again, I can look back on Superman Returns now and appreciate what was good about it, certainly. At the time, I was fighting it tooth and nail because I didn't want the possibility of that influencing Superman, from there on out in the culture. That put some cracks in the character, in Superman's cultural place a little bit. Nothing that couldn't have been fixed. But when Dan DiDio and Jim Lee created the New 52 in DC and started shoveling that through at all costs, they sent a torpedo to the heart of Superman in our culture. And it eventually exploded, eventually fragmented, especially by the time you got the Snyderverse going out there and whatnot. And it got to the point where, and people started to believe this, they started to believe this lie that these are just different versions of the character, guys. Come on. I mean, things evolve and they've always done this. No, they haven't always done this. Superman, the character, has remained remarkably the same for decades since he was created, up until 2011 when Dan Dio decided they needed to totally screw him over and remake him in the image of Batman or whatever. And then that just kept going and going and going. When Superman, the cultural place of Superman, the cultural character of Superman exploded, of course he still lives on in many of our memories. But Warner Brothers doubled down on the Snyderverse for so long. And then they started putting out different versions because they're trying to hedge their bets. And now they've got James Gunn in here doing his thing on it, where they've got this different, the Superman, the character exploded, and there are all these little piles of rubble of the character everywhere that will still burn brightly. But Warner Brothers has systematically gone over to each one of those little piles of rubble, and they're burning them out for all they're worth and then moving on. And that's what we're going to see with Superman Legacy. It's easy to just sort of casually pay attention and go, what are you talking about? He's talking about a bright hero. It looks at the colors and the music and no, truth, justice, and the human way, all the ways that James Gunn wants to be the auteur filmmaker beyond this. No, this is Superman. Screw you, James Gunn. This isn't about you. This is about Superman. That's what we want to see in this movie, not you. We want to see Superman in this movie, not your breed of dog because it's what you have. And screw that. This is a Superman movie. It should be that. And there are a number of different ways. But he's got enough of the little things right that people are going to go, oh, that's wonderful. And everybody's going to pretend that this is the greatest thing ever next month when it comes out. It's going to do well. I don't know how well it'll do, but it's going to do well enough to where no one's going to talk about it losing money. They'll go forward to try and make some more movies in this universe. By the end of summer, no one's going to give a crap about the movie Superman Legacy. Everybody's going to be fixated on, what about the Batman movie they're going to do next? No one will care at all about Superman Legacy anymore after the summer. During the summer, they're going to pretend that it's the bestest thing ever, and it's wonderful, and oh, you stupid critics, oh, ha, ha. After the summer, no one will care about this. The Gunverse will get maybe 3 more films, and then it'll peter out as well. And that maybe that'll happen one more time with an iteration of Superman or such, but eventually it's going to get to the point where they're like, well, I mean, audiences are just they got fatigue. They're just not really into it anymore. No, we've always been into these characters if you get them right. And but like I said, it's not worth fighting anymore because too many of you, and I don't mean literally you, but so many of you listening right now agree with me, but you're thinking, well, I'm still going to go see it. I mean, I gotta give it a chance. I mean, and so there's no point in fighting because people will still go shell out their money for it. We won't have a return to anything of cultural value in terms of contemporary culture until people start craving quality and not just new content. And I think we are light years away from the masses actually craving quality and not just new content. That's what people want today. And that's part of so much is a part of that too. Again, I can sit here and talk about it forever, but people are forgetting how to think. They're forgetting how to discern. They're forgetting how to, in everything, just even writing, as a writing professor, teaching college writing and whatnot and teaching literature, students are using AI to write now, and it's getting harder and harder to catch. And you've got a lot of professors saying, oh, well, this, you should just teach them how to use AI properly. I saw a Grammarly ad. That came, and it was for, if you need to write a paper, Grammarly does more than just check grammar. Grammarly will create your outline for you. Just put in the topic and boom. And it showed how it just creates, this is what your first paragraph should be about. This is what your second paragraph, like it literally, and it's like, we don't write it for you. We just help you along. If you outline it, you told me exactly what to write, and then how hard is it for anybody just to take the outline Grammarly gives you and go over to ChatGPT and say, write me a paper based on this outline. Boom, it's done. There are articles coming out now too. I stumbled across one the other day. A college professor reconnects with one of her students that was just like at the top of her class and went on to get a good career and everything. And she's asking her how things going because she reconnects with her. And the student is having a lot of trouble in the work world communicating, a lot of trouble expressing herself, in work situations, whether memos or even just in-person situations, a lot of trouble taking criticism, a lot of trouble just basic communication, people skills. And the article was about how schools should start teaching basic soft communication skills again. And that might sound silly to you, It's not, though, because here's how think about teaching your grandma how to text, right? And your grandmother's like, what does lol mean? And you have to explain, no, that means they're laughing out loud, but not really. They're just trying to say something's funny. Or, why do they send me this image of a dancing such and such? No, that's a GIF. And what they're trying to say is this. You have to teach them almost a whole new communication method, a whole new language, basically. That's what children today, that's what young people today in college, coming out of high school and college, that's how they are with just basic person-to-person communication skills. And you can blame a bunch of things, the technology, you can blame the pandemic lockdowns, you can blame whatever. People just aren't taught how to human anymore. And it's so true. You spend enough time with enough young people, and of course you'll find exceptions. I know some families who really do well with their children or whatever, but it's the world's changing in a really ugly way. And anytime you say that, every generation gets to a certain age, my age, and starts going, oh, what are these kids doing these days? It was much better in my era. Sure. And yeah, some of that I do feel just naturally, but I think I can make the hard argument that no, culture, we've never had culture change this drastically. This is far different from people, suddenly watching TV all the time when TV was invented. This is far different than that. This is like people are literally losing basic communication skills. So anyway, that's just all a big topic, and it's all, my point is, I like what I'm doing here. I don't think, and I'm not saying I won't make another video on, like, for example, how James Gunn's Superman totally misses the mark, or some other movie or whatever. But those videos will be few and far between if I decide to make them anymore at all, because it's just not worth it. The most you can expect from that route is to be like one of these anti-woke channels that feed the very beast they're claiming to try to kill. And they don't want that beast to die, because if Disney's still there pumping out crap, then it means they still get to talk about it and get clicks and so forth. Talked about that, the whole griftosphere thing. So I'm not into any of that. I'm not here. I'd love it when I can make money here. This is great. Alec produced $50 super chats, so much well appreciated, but you'll never see a video from me. Guys, YouTube has changed their algorithm lately, and I need some help. Please help me save my channel. No, because this isn't my primary source of income. Anything I make from YouTube is a few bucks extra. Girl, that's cool. That's great. If I'm not having fun doing what I do, if I'm not passionate or interested in what I do on YouTube, then you won't see me here anymore, So yeah, anyway, I don't know. Hopefully there is some sort of through line of logic to all of that. But I did want to just, just call attention to how the channel's changed and say, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. I have been heavy in movie reviews lately, but, I'm going to come back to the comic reviews and, fold in the book reviews and so forth as well. So let me get to the super chats I missed, and then we'll move on to our movie reviews. Make sure that that's the last one. Shoot. On YouTube, they've got a method where you can just click on the paid comments, but I don't think they have that in StreamYard yet, and that's where I am. So let me know if I missed yours, but I think going back, this was the top one there. Studio Super says, speaking of the James Gunn Superman film, heard that the editors for that are working overtime for that film, cutting a lot. Yeah, I've heard that too. Zaslav is making them cut a lot of stuff, and people are like, see, isn't that a good sign? No, that's a horrible sign. That's a horrible sign. Remember the Justice League when we found out that was going on, and then look what happened there. Sound Engraver, my dear Sound Engraver, for $2 said, not every interpretation is valid. You're right. Yeah. There's a whole, I'm trying to restrain yourself, Prof. Stick to the topic tonight. Move on. Studio Super said they hired him for his stuff. Might as well let it play out at this point. They had the chance to fire him, and they didn't take it. 2, if it succeeds, folks will think it's because of James Gunn. I don't see. This is the difference. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because this gives me a chance to make this distinction. So as I said, my reviews tonight are going to they're going to tick some people off. Okay. But I do want to make the distinction. See, when it comes to something like The Last Jedi or Man of Steel, or I think even the James Gunn Superman movie, even though it's not out yet, just because of the approaches that they're being taken and the choices being made and everything and all the people involved and whatnot, there are some movies that I think, yeah, those movies are objectively bad. They're bad for culture and people shouldn't watch them. And yeah, I think that. And people are like, you can't say that, you know, clutching their pearls or whatever. I don't care. None of that applies to the movies I'm talking about tonight. Okay, so I'm not uber critical of all the films that I'm going to talk about tonight, but the ones that I am, don't get mad, because all I'm saying is it wasn't for me, basically. That's basically what it amounts to. You know, I get getting really passionate reactions to people saying something about a franchise or a film or piece of art you love. I was telling Sound Engraver, you know, I like watching Gutfeld Tonight. It's one of the late night shows, you know, that I'll watch occasionally. And yeah, I think he's great. I think he's really funny. I think that the panel he has on, and last night he was doing some joke, and he said it's like when Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth had their falling out. I mean, yeah, you had to put up with Hagar for a while, but eventually they got back together. I was like, shut your filthy whore mouth, you know, Gutfeld. I don't want to hear about it, you know. And I couldn't even listen to the rest of the episode. He pissed me off. Now, that's just a visceral, you know, he's making a joke, whatever. I'll still watch his show next week. I had Kennedy on it as well, you know, my favorite panelist and stuff. But I'm just like, no, screw you. If you can't understand that Sammy Hagar took that band to levels they'd never been before, then you just get off my television. You know? So I know that that's a reaction fans have when somebody says something about something they're passionate about. And again, because these movies, I don't have any kind of, you know, really hardline negative view of them. I'm just pointing out why some of them really aren't for me. Recognize that. Okay. So when we talk about Godzilla -1, I only watched this. See, I'm just not a kaiju fan. I'm not a kaiju guy, and I recognize that. Got no problem with kaiju movies. People are super into it. Great. I hope you have a lot of fun. I hope you love these movies and you watch a bunch more and they make a bunch more for you. Great. The fact that it's a kaiju movie doesn't draw me to it. I have talked a lot about the legendary verse because I'm really, one, into King Kong, and then two, I really like that angle they take on it about how Godzilla is like the apex predator and they're trying to sort of normalize or bring balance to nature once the Titans appear and stuff. I like that take. Now, that's not what the classic Godzilla movies were about, and I get it. That's fine. I'm not pretending that they were or they should be. I'm just liking what I like. And I wasn't going to watch Godzilla -1 because it wasn't, you know, it wasn't part of the legendary verse, and just didn't appeal to me. And but it's got a human story. So did 2014's Godzilla. That had a wonderful human story. I'm just not going to watch it just because people really, really wish I would. But Big Al and I and Fan Man, for the last couple months, we've been taking turns. Each of us will pick a movie, and we'll do a night where we just watch a movie together. So Fan Man picked, of course, Chainsaw Massacre, you know, the first one, which I had never seen, and that really wasn't for me either. I recognized the skill and talent that went in that movie, especially with the budget when it was made. I mean, wow, that was really great. But as I've said before, I like a monster movie, and that movie was the evil that human beings can do one to another. And there was even sort of maybe social reasons for it and all this kind of stuff. That's great. Hey, that's wonderful. That's not for me. I don't like that kind of stuff. I can turn on the news and hear about the evil human beings do to each other. I like monster movies where it's sort of a monster out there, you know? So it just wasn't for me. And then it was Al's turn. Al says, careful. And Al said, well, have you guys seen Godzilla -1? And Al's a huge kaiju fan. He loves kaiju. He loves anything big monstrous. He takes it, you know? And I said, no, I hadn't seen it. I don't think Fan Man had seen it either. So we watched that. And they were asking me what I thought about it. Now, I thought it was a wonderfully made film. Very fine. It was a fine film. It was finely made. I didn't enjoy it. The fact that a big lizard was in it didn't do it for me. And I didn't appreciate the way the human story was kind of told, to be honest with you. And I'm just saying this because, again, I know most people will say you're full of crap, whatever, and that's fine. But maybe somewhere out there, there's somebody who maybe sort of felt the same way. I'll give you specific examples. All right, so you meet your main character. I forget the names of the characters, but you meet your main character who was supposed to be a kamikaze pilot in World War II, but he was scared to go kill himself, you know, and that's a great way to sort of invest your audience into a character. That's great. He's got this sort of baggage hanging over him. He's got this shame hanging over him. You see people in the culture after once the war is over, shaming him for not really doing his job and giving up his life as a kamikaze pilot. There's the added thing, which I thought was a little convoluted, but the added thing of him not being able to pull the trigger when he was in the plane there on Godzilla to save his fellow soldiers, you know, when he goes out in the island there. So he's got a lot of shame on him, but he wants to, he's trying to make a life after World War II. And the woman runs by him, hands him that baby that she had just found, and he's like, where's this woman? She's handing me this baby. And he walks out of the village with her, and the lady, because the lady's being chased by somebody, she had stolen some food or something like that. And the woman finds him and says, oh, give me the baby. She says, I've been watching you, been waiting for you to like leave the baby and go away so I can come back and get it, or something like that. I don't know. I might not have that totally right. But he said, I couldn't just leave a baby. I couldn't just leave it, even if it's not mine. I can't just leave this baby in a village like that. And so then you start to kind of invest in the character a little bit. Like, you're now, okay, this is really great. You've had this horrible past and you're trying to overcome it, but you're trying to do the right thing. And I don't expect him just to snap his fingers and suddenly be the most noble, virtuous character. But he starts, letting the woman and the baby live with him. And, the woman just found the baby too. So they're totally just sort of a found family kind of, but he's not really, he hasn't professed love for this woman or anything. He's just letting her live with him. And then there's a moment later where the little baby is like, I don't know, 2 years old or something. And he's explaining to his friends that, we just all kind of found each other. And he's like, but I'm not her father. And the little baby looks up, this little 2-year-old adorable little baby looks up and goes, Daddy? He's like, I'm not your daddy. And the baby's like looking sad. And I'm like, what? Well, screw you, guy. I don't really care about you much now. Like, you have to finesse. There has to be a fine, like, I know he's not going to snap his fingers and be dad of the year suddenly, but you can't, it wasn't a good balance of tension for me and keeping me invested in the character. And I'm spoiling Godzilla -1 for you, by the way. So if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, feel free to, tune out by now, but sure. But at one point, the woman dies, right? There's this explosion. Godzilla like slams down or something or whatever, and this big whoosh, and she pushes him into an alley. So he's saved. Then you see her fly away, and I was waiting to see the body because I was like, I'm not going to really believe that she's dead till I see a body. But then they take the time to show us, the wake, all the family and the friends and everybody mourning for her, and the little baby girl. She's still like 2 years old. And the camera just like sits on this girl for like a full minute and watching her cry. And it's so dumb. And I got so mad. I was like, oh, what kind of shit are you making me watch? Because I don't like to watch children in pain and stuff like that. I was like, well, I know how it ends. Well, of course, that tells me that, everything ends okay. But I figured the mother's not really dead because it wouldn't show us a body. And that really ticked me off that the filmmakers did that. The filmmakers are like, we can show the child crying for extra amounts of time because we're going to make it all better in the end. We'll throw a cherry on top and everything will be fine. Like, no, when I look back at a film and I look at the emotional ride you took me on, I've got a sense that it was worth it. Not that you pulled a gotcha to make it okay in the end. That ticks me off. So I just didn't, there were some great things about it. I mean, I did like the slow, way that he and the guy who really blamed him for the deaths of the other comrades, how they kind of came more to an ending, agreement in the ending and the ejection seat and all that, and the actual end moment of trying to fight Godzilla. That was really good stuff. That was good stuff. But overall, it's just like, I will never watch this movie again. This isn't a journey I like to go on. It wasn't fun for me. I didn't like it at all. I know I'm the only person here or anywhere near here that thinks that, and I'm fine with that. Again, this movie wasn't made for me. I'm not a kaiju fan. But even the human story just I didn't feel like it was, I really do focus on character development when it comes to movies, character development and character investment. If you can't really, because I think so many people, we'll talk about this, later with some of the other films I'm going to talk about, but a lot of people think that because they related to a character, or because the movie invites them to put themselves into the character's place, that's character investment. It's not. When you sit back and think about it, that can be the beginning of character investment. Absolutely. Helping people relate to your character, that can be a way into investment. Sure. But just relating to a character situation isn't in any way the be all and end all of character investment. It's not enough. So we'll talk about that more. But if I still have any kind of audience here, we'll move on. But, yes, Fan Man loved the film. Al loved it. I'm the weirdo. I'm the person with horrible taste. But again, too, like, I'm not saying that the movie sucked and no one should watch it. I'm just saying it wasn't for me. I told you why it wasn't for me. But apparently, hey, who am I? I made so much money and tons of people love it, and good for them. All right. I'll go back and read all your death threats to me later. Let's move on. Alien. I had obviously a much older movie, Alien. I'd seen most of the movie Alien. Yeah, this is what people say. Sound Engraver, geez, prof, you hate everything. And see, people can't say this. And Sound Engraver's joking, of course, but people say this. It's a straw man that they do. When you criticize something or criticize a number of things or a couple of things that they don't like, well, you're just angry. You just don't like anything, or what? You just don't like this or that. Keep in mind that Godzilla minus one had a happy ending, and I still wasn't okay with it. Okay, because that's another thing. If I don't like another movie that didn't have a happy ending, well, you can't everything can't have a happy ending. That's a straw man. I didn't say it needed a happy ending and so forth. Studio Super said one of the parts that was my fave about Godzilla minus one was when they're trying to recruit everyone to stop Godzilla. These guys are still recovering from a war, had every reason to say no, but all banded together. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and it really made you feel that too, because a lot of the guys were like, I can't handle this. I can't do the war again. We're leaving. And a lot of the guys just left. But then a lot of them said, look, we can bury our heads in the sand, but if we don't try to fight this thing, war is gonna come to our door once again, and it was really interesting. Fan Man appreciated the fact that it was the civilians that had to band together, and really take care of this threat. It wasn't like the government having to step in and do something. It was everyday people. And yeah, that was great. Like I said, it's not a horrible piece of crap film. There are a lot of great things about it, and I agree with you. I like that about it. But I just couldn't care about the main character, and I didn't appreciate the movie playing this sort of, see the girl sad, but it's okay. She'll be okay in the end, but you don't know that yet. Tee-hee. Shut up. I hate that. I hate that kind of storytelling. Anyway, Darth Nicholas said, Mr. Super Chat. Let me go back here. Yes, thank you. You said John Carpenter's The Thing was great, and I will fight you on that. We'll get to The Thing in a second. Let me talk about Alien first. But we'll get to that. Like Purdue, the men of minus one ooze positive masculinity. You're absolutely right. I really like the professor guy too, with the crazy hair. He was a great character, and a lot about it that was good. I don't deny that. If you guys are okay, if Alec Purdue doesn't want a refund on his big super chat yet, let me move on to Alien. Alien is the type of movie that's not really made for me either, because I don't really gravitate towards horror, but I do like monster movies. And I never really thought of it as a monster movie. I'd seen most of it before, but I decided, I'm doing this sci-fi movies, and I thought, what are some sci-fi movies that I either hadn't seen before or just really haven't sat down and really fully paid attention to beginning to end and tried to read the movie and so forth. So I wanted to do that with Alien and Aliens. I did that as well. But Alien, what a great movie. I freaking loved it. I don't have anything critical to say about it, to be honest. It nails the whole horror in space. The tagline was great, in space, no one can hear you scream, which is great because it highlights the claustrophobic nature. I mean, this all-powerful monster. I mean, they're using flamethrowers, but in the first movie, Alien, you're not even really sure if the flamethrower is doing much to hurt it. It's kind of retreating from it a little bit, but can anything kill this thing is really the idea. So I liked it. There's a lot of great themes in the movie too, of the sort of progeny the alien is trying to survive with the pods and the facehugger and so forth, trying to send on its progeny. The humans are trying to survive. In the first Alien movie, there are no children or no thoughts of like motherhood or anything like that, but Jonesy, the cat, that's a really important little part of the story, because this domestic cat, you can think of like, who in their right minds lets a cat inside a spaceship, especially like this big industrial, like salvage, spaceship, knowing the places cats can get into and knowing the damage they can cause here and there. Who brings a cat, into a spaceship? And it adds in, like, how do you even go help a cat if it's scared? I mean, cats can disappear forever and you'll never see them, if they don't want you to. So it's a really just knowing that a cat is there, and like towards the end when Ripley has to go and save the cat, like that's huge. That's a big deal. It's people it's humanity trying to protect more vulnerable life forms, whereas the aliens just trying to prey upon more vulnerable life forms, so you got that juxtaposition. I love the fact that the movie begins and ends with the sleeping pod, which is itself is sort of a little womb like place, coming out sort of as a rebirth or something like that, or retreating back into the safety of humanity, basically. Man, it was really great. I could talk a lot about it. The cast was wonderful. You've also got the idea of with the android there. Again, what is humanity? Is it humane to the android is the only one that talks about empathy, when he's being destroyed, and he's like, even though I'm not one of you, I'm not without sympathy. I do feel bad for your plight, but the good of the company, it does have this sort of class consciousness to the movie too, where they're the company just, they don't care if they sacrifice the whole crew of salvagers. Bring this thing back so we can study it and, market it or whatever. And then, of course, even within the crew, you've got the two, utility guys or whatever, maintenance men, kind of, barking about how they don't get as much money, because they're not one of the ones that runs the ship and so forth, So you've got some really cool commentary throughout the movie, little explorations. I mean, it's just a tight film, really well made, beginning to end. One thing I'll say about the movie, I loved the ending too, because of the visual and the just fitting in with the themes. I love it at the end that Ripley has this last battle basically in her underwear, and apparently that was a big deal. That was a big deal, and I've still heard about it today. I've been in college and hearing university professors, the male gaze. This is one of the examples that always gets thrown up about the male gaze. She's just doing that so men can look at her and blah blah blah. It makes perfect sense, as Sigourney Weaver herself has defended it. She's been fighting this sweaty, nonstop battle, blood and guts everywhere and everything. She's finally in a ship where she thinks, okay, I'm safe now. I can go ahead and put myself in this stasis pod, and go on to safety. So she's going to strip down out of all of her disgusting clothes. I don't know if it's true. I don't know how much of these sources were true, but I even heard that Sigourney Weaver thought Ripley should just be in the nude. That's probably a bit much. But I like the way that she's stripped down to her bare, no armor, right? That's the idea. She's very vulnerable in this moment. And then she, of course, has to fight the thing again, which makes it all the more terrifying. It's all the more terrifying. If she'd been all, buckled up and everything again, it wouldn't have been quite as terrifying. Plus she's all in white, it's the innocence. It's the, it was just great. It was a wonderful scene. It reminds me though, when people are just programmed, like feminist theorists are programmed to think this way about movies and books. Anytime a woman is scantily clad, oh, it's the male gaze, that's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And they're just programmed. They pull up this sort of pre-programmed speech within themselves. You can almost deliver it for them. I remember when I was my first semester at Spalding University, going there to get my MFA program. Each year for the little boot camp thing, the residency, they call it there, they highlighted a different concentration. So, I went there for the fiction concentration, but each year was highlighted a different one. So everybody had to get a little taste of each of the concentrations. And the one they had this year was screenwriting. So they had all of us read this book, this novel called Winter's Bone. I think it was called Winter's Bone. And we read the novel, and then we watched the movie as well. And we had the director of the movie come talk to us. And it was one of Jennifer Lawrence's really early movies. It was a good book. It wasn't a book I would ever pick out on my own to read. Just, not my, type of subject matter that would draw me in. But reading it, I was like, well, it's really good. It's really well done. Now, the book was by a man, and the movie was directed by a woman. There's a scene in the book. Okay, so it's about, I think it was set in rural Kentucky or Tennessee, one of these like really rural mountainous places with the characters in the book were really, sort of a low income, area. And this, there's a whole plot and everything, but this girl who's trying to like kind of hold together her family and keep together, her family, take care of them and so forth. She has to go and like go out to some of the neighboring farms and talk to some neighbors about some stuff. She doesn't have a car. She's walking. She has a long skirt on, and it kind of bundled up, layers upon layers because it's dead winter, it's freezing out there in the mountains in the winter. And she gets at one point where she's trying to make it all the way home, but she realizes she won't be able to make it all the way home. So she has to camp. And, rough country folk, they know how to kind of survive a little bit better than we did, or we do now or whatever. So she goes and finds this cave, and she's able to grab some fuel together for a fire. and her clothes are just wet through because she's been trudging through the snow. And she can't find anything that's dry enough to kindle the fire, to get it going, to dry out some of the wood she has and so forth. And the last thing she can do, she's taking her clothes off because they're soaking wet. And the only thing she can find that's dry are her underwear. She has to take her underwear off and use those to actually, because they're dry, and she can start the fire with that. I thought that was a beautiful scene. That's a beautiful picture of, like, she has to, because she's trying to save her family, she has to give of herself, give of the most intimate core way of herself. You know, she's serving as the mother for these children, even though she's an older sister. And that's a beautiful picture. Yeah, take my very underwear, you know, and just use this to create some warmth, some life-giving fire. And that was it. The book doesn't, like, you know, describe her lithely dancing in shadows around the fire or anything. No, it's not some sort of sexualized scene. It's a beautiful picture. It's really symbolic. As soon as I get there at Spalding, oh my gosh, we're doing their all book discussion. They spent like at least 10 or 15 minutes just wringing their little hands over this one scene. And person after person was raising their hand so they could just virtue their little, you know, signal their little virtue about. I remember there's one screenwriting professor was like, I think this is just really problematic, and it's just really it's problem with the male gaze and something we have to look. And he finished whatever garbage he was saying, and then he looks around just kind of like, did everybody get that I signaled out there? You know, and person after person was just, and this is the way that this liberal programming, this is not education. This is, here's this file, tuck it away, and whenever this triggering aspect comes up, don't bother thinking, just pull up this file and read it for yourself. You know, that's all it is. And then when the director came and talked to us, of course the people are going to like try to ask some questions, then, you know, weevil around to that scene again, and the woman's like, yeah, I figured that. We didn't put that in the movie because I think that was probably just the fact that a male wrote the book. I'm like, well, see, that idiocy, that sort of limiting perspective just robbed you guys of a beautiful scene. There was nothing male gaze-ish about that scene. There's nothing sexualized about that scene at all. It's a beautiful symbol of what this girl's having to give for her family. But you can't talk to people. You can't talk to people these are ideologues. These are people who have sacrificed their intellect to the ideology. So when it comes time to think about something, they turn and consult the ideology. They don't actually think about it. They don't actually interpret it or consider it for themselves. We have to consult the ideology first, you know? So it's, it's garbage. Anyway, that was a whole shtick that brought up about the scene in Alien, but Alien was awesome. We can talk about Aliens later too, but let me get these super chats here that I missed. Studio Super says, by the way, off subject with content of your channel, I loved your analysis on the classic Snow White. That would be great, in my opinion. Every time Disney butchers a classic, you analyze the classic they're butchering. Yeah. I mean, did you guys hear about the Lilo and Stitch? Spoilers if you, for whatever horrible reason, actually want to go see that live action thing. But apparently, like, she ends up giving Lilo to the state at the end. What? Like, isn't that the whole point of the movie? Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind. You know, Disney lives to deconstruct itself. It's horrible. Darth Enigma, thank you for the super chat there. He said, now I'm curious about your opinion on the Alien versus Predator movies. I haven't gotten that far. I've seen parts of Aliens as well, but I went ahead and watched that beginning to end. I'm not going to talk about that tonight because I want to get the thing in before my time's up. But it was great. Aliens was so wonderful. It was so wonderful that I was excited to watch the next one, Alien 3, which I know you guys know. Oh my gosh, why'd you watch Alien 3? And it's horrible. Alien 3 is a garbage movie. That's a crap movie that hurts culture and should be just gone from existence. I hated it. Hated it. And I don't really have any desire to see the rest of them because, you know me, once you bust up a continuity, I'm not interested in hearing your really good story that takes place later in the same continuity as this crap that, you know, I didn't like. I do understand, though, the Alien versus Predator. I think Fan Man was saying something that it's kind of like its own universe or something. So I might watch that one day. It's not off the table. But Studio Super, thank you for the $4.99. Said, when I'm looking, it's not the male gaze. I am straight, so it's the male straights. Thank you very much. About gaze strikes. I see what you're doing there phonetically. Very clever. Yeah, the idea of the male gaze or all this stuff. See, like I said before, there are critical theories, they call themselves, which aren't critical. They're not about learning from the literature or learning from the film. All these critical theories are about is how can we use this book or how can we use this movie to further our political agenda? Feminist theory, queer theory, or gender deconstruction theory, I guess. They kind of merged them now and called them some different things. Marxist theory, post-colonial theory. None of these are actual ways to learn from books or learn about movies or whatever. They're ways to use books and movies to further their own built-in foundational political agendas, which is garbage. And that's the crap that's taught in school. Again, that's why I didn't go all the way to a PhD. I was going to go to a PhD in English, but my master's degree in English, my master's program, this was just nonsense, just bull crap, shoveled, over and over and over again. I was like, well, screw this. I got my MA in English, but then I was like, well, I'm gonna do an MFA in creative writing, learn how to write creatively, my own, and do that kind of stuff, because that's a terminal degree in the fine arts. But I ran into so much of it, that garbage at Spalding University there as well. So yeah, it's just when it comes to the liberal arts or even the fine arts, I don't think college is all that useful. Said it before, I'll say it again, but that's a whole other rant. I will get to the thing. We're doing the thing before we end, so don't worry. I'm going to take my time and talk about the thing. Nathaniel Losball said, did you watch the theatrical or the director's cut of Alien? I think it was the theatrical, because I know that in the director's cut, for example, there's a deleted scene that's actually added to it in which you see the captain being sort of fed on or to develop another facehugger. And that wasn't in the movie when they did Aliens. And in Aliens, you realize that the facehugger or the eggs are laid by a queen, not out of a fed upon human or something like that. So I would like to go and watch the director's cut, but it was really good. I mean, I applaud Alien. It was amazing. And Aliens, though I'll talk about that more in detail later, was really good. I watched Alien 3 also because Lance Henriksen was in it. And I love Lance Henriksen's work. I'd loved it before, but after watching Millennium recently, it just made me realize how much I really dig him as an actor. Even he had really critical things. He was talking about how the movie's it's just so nihilistic. It's like there's nobody to root for. It's just you walk out of it just feeling gross, and he was in the movie himself, so yeah. All right, so let's talk about the thing. All right, first of all, before I talk about the thing, though, I did know I'd never seen the thing. That's one that I totally missed, but I love John Carpenter's Halloween. Did I ever see any other John Carpenter films? I mean, I've seen Halloween too, but I don't really count that because I don't appreciate, they had to force him to make it. He didn't want to make it anyway, and so forth and so on. But Halloween, first one, was just amazing. I love it. Classic monster movie. That ending is so beautiful because, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, she survives, but you can't find the shape. Where is he? And it's just that commentary that evil is in the world and true evil exists. It's worth fighting against. It's worth trying to survive against. It's even possible to survive against. But will it be possible the next time? You don't know. It's a new battle each and every time, So it's just love that movie. There's so much more to that, But it was a great movie. So I decided to watch The Thing. Also love Kurt Russell. I mean, I love anything he's in, mostly anyway. He was the one guiding or the one saving aspect of the Legendary Versus TV series that was just nothing but a bunch of DEI shoved in it every which hole. But at least you had Kurt Russell and his son who acted really well in it. Anyway, I knew, though, that The Thing was based on The Thing from Another World from 1952, I think. And that's one of the Howard Hawks films I had never seen. And Howard Hawks, he's one of my favorite directors ever. I talked about how much I love Rio Bravo, for example, how that's one of my favorite films ever. But what I've always loved about Howard Hawks, we talked a lot about, we've looked at some of his film noir, we've looked at some of his screwball comedies and whatnot. He's a director at least, and he writes-ish some. I mean, he uses scripts that people write, but he's from that area where the directors were basically they did a lot of storytelling and from ground up themselves, even if they work with screenwriters. And he's somebody who literally did a movie in just about every genre you can think of. Scarface, gangster movie, Bringing Up Baby, screwball comedy. Like I said, he did detective films, film noir. He did musicals, Gentlemen for Blondes, and The Thing from Another World. Now, he's listed as a producer on A Thing from Another World, and his film editor, I think, was the one that he listed as the director, but everybody knows that he actually directed the movie. The cast will all tell you they no Howard Hawks was there directing the movie. If you know Howard Hawks' movies, if you know the feel of their films, this is very clearly a Howard Hawks film. Even the guy listed as the director said, yeah, no, Howard Hawks directed it. Howard Hawks said he let his film editor be listed as the director so he could get into the Directors Guild. But then there's also speculation, too, that back then, I mean, if you're a well-known, well-respected director like Howard Hawks was, you've done Westerns, you've done everything, to do a little sci-fi, especially a horror sci-fi movie, that really kind of is a blight on your reputation or on your record, you know, so he didn't want to actually be listed as the director, I would imagine. But anyway, I'd never seen that movie, and it is freaking amazing. The Thing from Another World, 1952. It's absolutely everything you'd expect from a great Howard Hawks film. Snappy dialogue, but even to the next level. I mean, a lot of people have seen it, have said this before, but there's this aspect where in the scenes, the characters interrupt each other a lot, or they'll speak over one another a little bit towards the end, which makes it very lifelike. That's how people talk in real life. And at first time it happens, you think, oh, that, you know, one actor wasn't quite done with his line before the other one jumped in. But no, they keep doing it over and over again. And it's to show the communal nature. Like, if we are to survive as humanity, we need to work together. And that's one of the themes of the film you see. And The Thing from Outer Space, it's very... Now, looking at it today, a 1952 film viewed from today's lens, you're not getting scared watching this movie. It's no tense moments. You're not like, ooh, you know, it's a 1952 film. So it just hits differently in that respect. But you can see how that's how to do good pacing and good tension. You don't really see the alien very much at all. You see a glimpse of him in the ice a little bit. And when you do actually see the full-bodied alien monster coming after them, it's in the shadows. You see it like once or twice for like a quick little glimpse. And it just adds to the you know, to the effect of it all. The ending is great. The characters, it has such a large cast of characters, but each of them has their little moment, and they really are developed quite well throughout the whole thing. The pacing of it was so perfect. There was no lulls or no like moments where you're like, oh man, this is kind of dragging a little bit or anything. I could talk way more about just The Thing from Another World, but I know you guys want me to move on to The Thing, so I will. But let me just encourage you. Even if you love John Carpenter's The Thing and you think nothing could be better, you might want to. It might be interesting to you to go watch the movie that was first created. Now, I argue that John Carpenter's The Thing is not a remake of A Thing from Another World. The Thing from Another World. What I think is a best way to explain that is John Carpenter's The Thing is another adaptation of the same source material, because there's a short story. I forget the name of the short story. It's not The Thing, but there's a short story that the original 1952 film is based on, and technically that John Carpenter's The Thing is based on. John Carpenter's The Thing adapts different aspects from that story than the Howard Hawks film does. It does make a few nods to the 52 film, kind of pays homage to it a little bit, which is nice to see, but it's a very different, it's not a remake at all. It's none of the same characters, none of the same setting. The monster's completely different. It's just such a totally different film. I think it's really just not correct to call it a remake. I think it's another adaptation of the same source material. So Who Goes There? Yeah, that was the name of the short story. Thank you. So I watched The Thing then, and I thought, okay, you know, this is going to be cool. I like the basic fodder for the story already. Kurt Russell's in it. You know, Brimley's in it. The guy who played Clark, who was also Stan in It. He was the father in License to Drive. I'm blanking on his name right now, but I love him. I love his acting in different movies throughout the 80s. So he was great to see in it. And the movie starts, and I love the way it starts. I love the way, you know, we're in Antarctica. We're not in the North Pole. We're in Antarctica at this point. And you've got this helicopter chasing this like husky dog across the snow, trying to shoot at it, like really trying to take this dog down. But the dog's just doing everything it can to survive. And you're like, oh, the poor dog, I hope it gets away and stuff. And the dog eventually runs up to this U.S. research outpost there, where all of our main characters are. And this helicopter guy, like he accidentally blows up his helicopter, getting out of it and running away. And he's trying to shoot at this dog for all get out, and ends up firing and shooting one of the U.S. guys in the leg there. So they eventually have to kill this guy who's gone mad with a gun here. And then they're left with this mystery, like, who is this guy? They see from the markings on the helicopter that it was a Norwegian outpost. And very quickly into the movie, I don't think it's a spoiler, but you realize, okay, the dog there's something about the dog, right? The alien monster or whatever, it's inside the dog, or you don't know how at first, but the dog is the problem here. Okay, you realize that, and you see scenes in the outpost where the dog's just kind of walking around, or it goes into one guy's room, or it's just in the rec room with him, and so forth. And I thought this is a really good setup for some real tension and suspense here, especially at the end of this night. You know, they've gone and they've investigated the Norwegian place, which is in ruins now. And they see the burned bodies of these like shape-shifting, disgusting, monstrous creatures and everything. So they see all this and great tension. Then you're back and it's nighttime. There's a storm coming in. They can't reach anybody on the radio. They're in freaking Antarctica. And the dog's still there in the rec room. And one of the guys is kind of startled by the dog. He says, hey, you know, Clark, take this dog out to where it belongs or whatever. Because they've got a place sort of not outdoors, but in the element a little bit where the huskies are more comfortable anyway, the pen for the dogs. So you see the dog and it goes into the pen, all the other dogs, and it sits down. I'm thinking, this is amazing. This is what great fodder for suspense and terror. And the dog lays down and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to hear the dog scream and bark and cry out in pain. And then the people are going to run back in and you might only see 2 dogs left alive, right? So they have to let the 2 dogs back in with them, you know, because they can't leave them there with all the dead dog bodies or whatever. And then it's like, oh my gosh, which dog is it? You know, and they're going to really ramp up some tension and terror. That's not what you see. You go ahead and see the dog sit down and then morph into this giant monster changeling kind of creature. And then everybody runs in and sees that going on. Where's the suspense in that? It's all gone. Now, to be fair, maybe John Carpenter wasn't looking for suspense. Clearly, he was looking for other things. He nailed the claustrophobic nature of the story, how everything was, you know, they're isolated in this Antarctica. Who can you trust? You know, that everybody's paranoid, the viewer's paranoid. He really nails a lot of the effect, which is a good thing. And the effects are amazing. The effects deserve every bit of accolades they've received. Even today, like they look different to modern eyes that are so used to seeing everything, you know, with computer generated stuff. But I don't think they were all that dated, to be honest. I think they were just amazing. So the effects, 100% freaking amazing. But I'm watching it and I keep waiting to find a character that I can really care about more than another or something. And I know that maybe you don't want to invest viewers into any one character too much because you kind of have to keep them all paranoid of each other. But we need a perspective. And you do get MacReady, Kurt Russell's character, you get his perspective the most. He's the one kind of taking point. But I asked myself, am I invested in his character because of any of the writing or any of the story, or is it just because Kurt Russell's playing him? Because Kurt Russell has a natural presence, a charisma about him. You know, you're going to follow him in any movie. And then I knew who he was too, you know, I know that image, that voice, that face and stuff. And I don't really care about his character. I mean, the first time you ever see him, he's playing automatic chess, that chess king computer game in his little loft there, and he loses. And as soon as he loses, he pours his drink inside the computer, fries out the whole thing and says, "You cheating bitch," and then walks away. Now that can either be funny or it can be, look at that petulant child. And it depends on how you build on it, right? There are different ways to invest audiences in a character. You can use humor, you can use sympathy, or competence. You can use a combination of the three, but those are the 3 ways. And you can't, if you're going to use sympathy, you can't just drive sympathy into the ground. This is one of the problems with Man of Steel. Who gives a crap about this Clark Kent? Because all you ever do is look how hard he had it. Look how hard, hey, see how hard he still got it? Yeah, look how hard he's dealing with things now. Hey, look how sad he is now, guys. See how sad he is? Like, who cares? Who cares? Pull your big boy trunks up and do something, you know? So anyway, I know that just pisses off the Snyder Bros watching, but anyway, I didn't really care about his character. And then the ending, I was waiting for something to happen. I liked a lot of it. I liked the paranoia, the Dr. Brimley and you know, all of the different ways the film misdirects you here and there. That seemed very, you know, natural. It didn't seem, what's the word? Planned or you know, there's a word I'm looking for, but I can't think of it. But it didn't seem, you know, instigated or, you know, overhandedly done or anything like that. And then that ending, okay, well, is one of them the thing or is not? And then they just sort of sit there basically to die, because you can't imagine any setting to where they're going to live. The storm's still going on. Nobody can come rescue them. They've blown up contrived. Yeah, thank you. That's the word, Solo Center. everything's blown up around them, so there's no heat to be had after the fires subside. They're just there to either die from the cold, or one of them becomes the thing and kills the other. That's the only thing that can happen. And then the movie just ends. And I thought, what did this movie, what was the purpose of this movie? Just to make me feel kind of paranoid and a little claustrophobic? Okay, but I can do that reading a Poe story. To show off some really cool effects, okay, great. I think this film absolutely deserves its place in cinematic history, and I can see its influence on movies to come after it. I get it. 100% agree with you. But that ending was just like, what? I don't see any purpose for the film. Like, what is the film trying to accomplish with me? Is there any kind of message? Is there any, and I don't need a neat little moral or anything, but I need something more than, yeah, but did we make you feel kind of scared? I need more than that, you know? I need a purpose. The Thing felt like a postmodern film. It 100% felt like postmodernism at work on the cinema. And I hate that. I hate that. Other people love it. That's great. Fan Man was pointing out to me how the ending was ambiguous, just like Halloween. And I get that. But the reason I love Halloween's ending is because Jamie Lee Curtis's character is alive, and she's solidly alive. Like, you can see her going off to the police station or the hospital or whatever. Again, ignore what happens in Halloween 2 if you don't like that continuity like I don't. But the evil is still out there. The evil still exists. The evil is still out there. We're making comments about evil. We're making comments about the importance of humanity fighting against evil. All of these humans in the Thing at this outpost were all being terrible to each other. Nobody was really being kind to the other. The only person that I kind of started to feel some investment in was Clark, the guy who really loved the dogs. But then he dies like a chump, you know, halfway through the film. So I didn't really get a lot of time with him. And again, I could relate to the characters. I could relate to how terrifying it would be. Maybe one or two characters does something that I would maybe do if I was in that situation. You can relate to the frustration of the captain being tied to the freaking couch the whole time, and they finally realize he's not the Thing. Yeah, you can relate to the situation, but that doesn't mean I give a crap about any of these characters. And I just didn't. I really didn't. And I think most people, if they're honest, they would say they didn't either. I think they relate. They probably, people enjoyed the ride. And hey, that's enough for some people. Again, this was like more solidly a horror film that I'm not really into. So I'm not the person this movie was made for. It's, again, just like I'm not a kaiju fan. I'm not just a horror fan. I don't like John Carpenter's movies across the board just because, I mean, there's not for me, taste-wise, I mean, but I really like Halloween because of what it was. If you're livid with me, that's fine. Fan Man told me it's an undeniable classic, and if you can't see that, I don't know what I can say. So he's already taken me behind the woodshed. There's nothing you can say. But I really don't like this movie. I understand it's a classic masterpiece. I understand why it is. Great. I'm glad people enjoy it. Get the best edition you can and watch it over and over if you want, but I'll never watch it again. And personally, I don't see what the big hubbub about it is. I really don't. Sorry. I'm sorry. just didn't like it. But I loved Thing from Another World, the Howard Hawks film. So I do recommend people check that out. Let me see Super Chats I missed here. Let's see. And I'll check in with any other comments as I'm wrapping up here. Guybart, good to see you, Guybart. Says, a little off subject. Last night I watched Mystery Men for the first time, and it's now one of my favorite non-DC Marvel superhero movies I've seen. I love Mystery Men too. That was so funny. I do understand it's based off a comic property, not a DC or Marvel one, but I never read the comic property it was based off of. So maybe it's way off the mark or whatever. The film's freaking hilarious. And I like the way it was, kind of being sort of satirizing superhero movies before the big boom even hit, and it was funny. It was done well. And it was, the heroes. I think the Blue Raja was my favorite. Of course, the Spleen's hilarious too, right? But that's a great film. I like that one. Studio Super said, I got to go in a bit, but before I go, I'm practicing doing caricatures. It would be all right if I did one of you in Sound Engraver. Of course, go for it. Go for it. I love your work. You have great work. Yeah, and it's a caricature, I realize, so it's not a flattering portrait. I don't worry. I won't expect such. Alec Purdue for $5. Thank you so much. Said John Carpenter's The Thing was a subtle commentary on the fear of AIDS at that point in time. Now that's interesting. I haven't really researched the movie, so maybe this is something everybody just knows. Just hearing it right now, I would imagine that I would hesitate. Like, is that like, I don't think the movie, like, that's the reason the movie exists. That's what it was all about. I could definitely see reading that tension into the film, or, you know, definitely see that. I could see that that was one of the tensions the movie was providing for you to work out, you know. Definitely. And that's interesting that, you know, maybe that gives more of a reason for it or whatever. Again, doesn't make it for me, but that's interesting. Thank you for telling me that. That's kind of a interesting take on it. Did I miss anybody super chat? All right, if I've missed your super chat, let me know. But I don't think I have. Ghost Planet Maxine says the Halloween 78 novel hints that Michael has an Irish ancestor who's cursed. Also, talking to him as a ghost. And the two novel is awesome. It takes place after the original novel, and Michael and Loomis both die. Interesting. I may check the novel. Did John Carpenter write the novels, or were they novelizations of the script by another writer? I like Halloween as opposed to, say, something like Chainsaw Massacre, because Halloween does, the evil monster is Michael Myers, little Michael Myers that you see, but he's treated as just the shape. I mean, he's treated as the boogeyman. And it's not about, oh, he's an individual who was just sort of, messed up in the head and he's doing these things because he's sick. No, it was trying to show that real, true evil exists and can possess people, you know, outside of a possession narrative. You know, it just really did. I think it just blended that so well, which is why I liked it there. Eldritch Fan said, missed the Alien review. Did you mention Prometheus? As flawed as the movie was, I appreciate that it was trying to do. The alien isn't really alien. I haven't seen that far yet. All I've seen is, as I said earlier, I watched Alien, freaking loved it. Watched Aliens, absolutely loved that. Hated everything to remotely do with Alien 3, and that's where I stopped watching. I don't know if I could keep going in the franchise after Alien 3. I do want to pick up the comics, though, because the comics people have said are really great, and that's when it's late and I've been streaming for over an hour, so I'm just, my brain's misfiring everywhere, but I can't remember the character names. But the little girl and the Michael Bihn's character, from Alien, I think that the comics mostly follow them out there fighting aliens at different outposts or whatever, and then Ripley comes back at one point too. I'd like to read the comics, because apparently a lot of people were really into those between Aliens and Alien 3, and then when Alien 3 just decides to take a dump all over everything everybody liked about it, just no thanks. So yeah. What's going on here? Somebody said something. The chat's jumping around here a little bit. Alec Purdue taking off. Yeah, I'm gonna go here in a second too. Been fun, Prof. Glad to have heard your opinion on -1. Live this time around. Yeah, again, let me just say, I'm not a kaiju fan. It wasn't made for me. I'm glad people love it. Glad they're having a great time with it. Please go continue to. I won't be watching a sequel. That's all. Unless Al picks it and makes me watch it during one of our group nights. Next month is my turn. I told him, I was like, all right, guys, you made me watch 2 movies that I didn't care for. We're going to do Ernest Goes to Africa or something. Not really. But I get to pick the movie next time, so we'll see which one we watch. It'll be fun. All right. I am kind of wiped out. My voice is going here, so I think I'm going to close down. But really loved hanging out with you guys as usual. Went over the hour. Hopefully you guys enjoyed a lot of the interview from last week with Doug Brody. I cut that out. Last night I just cut out, probably one of the most important points he made too, is he said, about owning your work and stuff, and that's a shorter video. So make sure you check that out if nothing else, and do keep in mind, there's still new books to buy that are coming out good, but I'm going to call those out when I see them. And if I happen to see a good new movie, I'll call it out, sure. But I like doing these retro things. And I will go back to my journey through the comics, my journey through the post-crisis DC comics. I'll get back into those. I've been rereading all 3 volumes of Knights of the Old Republic, and they're hefty tomes, and I don't have as much time to sit down and physically read as I do on other things. So, but I'll get back to the comics as well. The Batman Shadows of the Bat and Legends of the Dark Knight. We'll keep going through that run. I've got, quite a few stacks to get through there. So yeah. hope you guys had fun. I will go back when I watch the replay and look at some of these comments and see how bad you guys wanted to throw me under a bus here for my thoughts. But you guys were very polite, I have to say. Thank you for not burning me in effigy just yet. I appreciate that. I understand these movies are beloved, and I respect that completely. But next week I'll talk about some others I didn't get to. I didn't get to Terminator 2. I rewatched those. I might start watching the Sarah Connor Chronicles because I've never seen those. I'd like to watch those. Aliens, like I said, we can talk about. Sphere, I watched Sphere by Michael Crichton. We can talk about, and some others. I got, just keep going with these things. So we'll get to more next year. We get to more next week. I'm done streaming. I'm tired. You guys have a blast. And until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the true blue hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.